Good morning, everybody. Let's watch this video. All right. I'm live, you know. Wow. Don't you just want to say yes with zeal? Oh my goodness. Aren't you just ready to jump out of your seat and join? That's the power of zeal, one of our 12 divine powers, which leads a big hand in our theme of the month of play. When we're playing in the zone, we're filled with zeal. It's not about how loud and boisterous we're playing. It's about the energy, the enthusiasm with which we're playing. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, when he was 94, he said, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm as I spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things which ought to be done by me." That's his writing there. To say the least, apparently his when he wrote all his talks, which were transcribed into all the Unity books, there was one person who could read his writing, and that was his second wife, Cora Fillmore. Interesting, eh? But on the other side of the spectrum of zeal, here's a picture of Myrtle, his wife, the other co-founder of Unity. They don't look very zealous and playful, do they? I don't know if you can make that slide bigger, Ariana, but I wanted to show you the first person. Yeah, you see the guy up on the top left? They actually think that's a picture of a dead, like a picture, I can't remember what they call it, after he's dead, like in his coffin. But the other people don't look that much more alive either. It's just so funny. But, you know, mind you, one of the key features of every service that Charles and Myrtle did was joy singing. That was where they had their fun and expressed their spirit, that zeal, their enthusiasm. And it's a feature that's come down through the ages. I mean, that's why we always start the service with lots of music to kind of get your spirit flowing, to get you kind of in the zone. In his book, The 12 Powers of Man, Charles points out the importance of our God-given ability to be zealous, enthusiastic about life and living. He writes, "Zeal is the great universal impulse that lies back of all action, the mighty force that incites the winds, the tides, the storms. It urges the planets on its course and spurs the ant to great exertion." So not only is zeal responsible for this push that forces everything to happen, but also the little teensy ant to be scurrying around on the ground gathering stuff. Zeal is the impulse to go forward, the urge behind all things. To be without zeal is to be without the zest of living. Without zeal, life would be boring and mundane. I always like the way you can go and buy zest at the grocery store. It comes lemon zest. I think that's so neat. You can just, and boy, is it zesty. But the man without zeal, Charles says, is like an engine without steam or an electric motor without a current. This isn't something new. Are you all familiar with the book of Revelation in the Bible? Now, it's ascribed to somebody called John. By the way, a lot of people say revelations, but there's only one revelation. It was one dream that he had. It's kind of like the Course in Miracles, which was a dream. And so the revelation is about how the churches are going to be and how people are going to be in the future. And so one of the part of the book of Revelation was writing letters to the 7 churches in Asia Minor. I don't know if you can see them there, kind of hard to see, but there were 7 churches that Paul, that's better. So Paul went around and started 7 churches. Not like I'm doing at Unity Ministry in Motion, because I wait for people to contact me. He actually went there and got everybody all fired up because of his zeal and enthusiasm about the message that Jesus had. But he established them in his travels. Well, a few years after, when Paul wasn't traveling anymore, the churches kind of changed. They kind of got into a little bit of trouble because they didn't have a regional rep. They needed a regional rep. So John was telling them what to do. So he wrote to the church in Laodicea, and listen to what he says. I just think this is so funny. He said, "I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were either cold or hot. So because you're lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth." That's chapter 3, verse 15. I think that's so hilarious. Boy, he was just tearing a strip off them, wasn't he? We sure can't say that you guys are lukewarm at this group. I mean, that gathering last week at Katie's was so energetic. It was wonderful, and people could do whatever they want. I'm not into hugging these days. I'm just in one of those groups that I'm not hugging, and everybody respected that. I felt so good about that, and enjoyed watching people hugging each other that were comfortable doing that. And so it was just, I felt a lot of virtual hugs. But we were in the play zone for sure. In Unity, we teach that the Bible is the story of our life. The Old Testament was the story of before we actually discovered that we are spiritual beings, before we knew our divinity. And the first 4 books of the New Testament, the Gospels, when Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, when Jesus was preaching and healing, was about how our aha moments when we realize, oh, there is something more to life than just me. And then Acts to Revelation is the development of our inner Christ powers, how we develop them ourselves, our 12 gifts from God, for example. But sometimes we get a little bit complacent, don't we? We take these awakening powers for granted. So what the writer of the book of Revelation to the church in Laodicea was saying, don't live life lukewarm. Jim Rosemergy, the Unity minister, says that one of the world's difficulties is that many of the people are lukewarm with their lives. They stay in the shallow end of the pool. Now, the shallow end of the pool is okay for splashing around, but it's not for the serious swimmer. Jim says, consider that the deep end is where there's buoyancy. Ocean-going vessels going in and out of the harbor, being pushed about by tugs, they're not meant to be tied up at the dock. We're meant for the high seas. And so if we're going to dive, we need to dive into the deep end of the pool. How many of you have been on a cruise ship when it's tied up at the dock? It's boring. Everybody leaves, right? It gets lukewarm. But so we want to dive into the deep end of the pool with a beautiful swan dive, perhaps. Yeah, just let go. So we want to say yes in a big way to zeal. Now, we've all been given the same amount of zeal. It's just that some people don't develop this free-flowing abundance, and their life ends up being stagnant and dull and limiting, disappointing. They're denying their God-given opportunity to make use of all of their inheritance as children of God. It's up to us to acknowledge it and to work with it. And how we do that will determine whether we use it to work for or against us. Because as you know, many people have used it for selfish, unhealthy ways. People have zealously made money, gained worldly power, or been successful in some other materialistic manner and squashing others beneath them helter-skelter in their rush to kind of take over. This ego-driven use of zeal has caused all kinds of chaos in the world, hasn't it? We could spend hours listing them. I find it really interesting that the faculty of zeal is represented by the disciple called Simon the Zealot, because all the 12 powers each have a disciple of Jesus that represents that power. Well, of course, I don't think Charles had to think too hard to figure out that connotation. Do you like that picture of Simon? Somebody took him at the time with their cell phone, obviously. Anyway, but before becoming a disciple, Simon belonged to a group of fanatics who lived in the mountains and fought the Romans. They were trying to free their country from foreign domination. They were a rough group of men. They lived a hard life. They were fighting continually, snipering, being absolute nuisances to the Romans. But they were filled with such a flame of zeal, of devotion to a cause. And we know that, this is what's happened in the world. People are feeling very zealous, but, you see that when you watch the news, but all their efforts were devoted to trying to force change on the world. Not much playing going on. But then Simon heard Jesus and he became zealous for Jesus' teachings, which is a good thing to be zealous about. He left the freedom fighters and followed him. And there he learned to temper his zeal, to give up force and fighting and cooperate with the other disciples. I bet he kept them all fired up, I'll tell you. Yeah, have you ever met anybody in Unity who gets carried away when they first learn about these Unity truth teachings? I did. I just wanted everybody to know how wonderful they were, what a difference they were making in my life, and how it was transforming my life, and how, if you do this, everybody, you could transform the world. It would just be so simple. But as Charles Fillmore said in the next PowerPoint slide, turn a portion of your zeal to do God's will to the establishing of his kingdom within you. Because many enthusiastic spiritual workers have let their zeal demonstrate the truth to others. Oh, I skipped a sentence. Don't put all your enthusiasm into teaching, preaching, healing, and helping others. Help yourself. Many enthusiastic spiritual workers have let their zeal to demonstrate the truth to others rob them of the power to demonstrate the truth for themselves. Some may become even so zealous for the spread of truth that they bring on nervous prostration. Well, we don't want you to do that. That's actually what happened to me, I think. I got so sick when I first started talking about learning about Unity. I think I was having nervous prostration. I think that Louise Hay said that the cause of a stiff neck is trying to convert others or force others to do your will by a strong determination and the wrong use of zeal. So that's because that's where Charles Fillmore located the power of zeal, right in the base of your neck, right in your medulla oblongata here. So question is, how's your neck feeling? A little stiff, maybe? It's so important to be aware of the power that zeal has and to bring it under the direction of our faculty of judgment and love. Without guidance, it will cause us to go rushing off into all directions. However, with the leadership of wisdom, tempered by love, it becomes a tremendous spiritual energy that carries us forward to greater and greater achievement. One of the important things to remember is never to try to suppress our faculty of zeal or enthusiasm. That's why it's about playing. It's a God-given gift that we're to use to channel our energy to do God's will. When we're using zeal appropriately, we're filled with that joy and enthusiasm. You can just feel it because you're loving what you're doing. You know, I used to do a lot of wallpapering back when I first had a house, and I was very zealous about wallpapering, I guess, because I would be so filled with how it looked. To me, wallpapering changes a wall so quickly, faster than painting, and I would just be all fired up, and I'd forget to eat or even know what time it was. It was so much. I felt so vitally alive. And, you know, and then at the same time, I was aware that I was relaxed, I was focused, and I was just allowing things to unfold. So how can we properly develop our power of zeal? One of my favorite books about the 12 powers is, and our innate gifts from God, is Your God-Given Potential by Winifred Wilkinson Hosman. I love that name, Winifred Wilkinson Hosman. She was a Unity minister, and her subtitle is Unfolding the 12 Spiritual Powers. So she describes the 7 steps in unfolding each one, turning on the light of zeal. So I've kind of summarized them into 4 steps. Step 1 is divine dissatisfaction. Now, if we're satisfied with the way things are, we'll never get enthusiastic about growing. We will be lukewarm. Doesn't mean we start blaming other people and situations for what we're experiencing. But if we do that, we'll be resisting what is. And we all know where that gets us. That's a totally different talk. Actually, that's next month's talk about acceptance. Yeah, tune in. But divine dissatisfaction means that we feel spirit within us urging us on to something better, something higher. We don't make do. We don't need to settle for second best. And it won't leave us alone accepting that second best as far as our spiritual growth goes. We feel the urge, and it grows to number 2, which is desire. Desire. As many Unity teachers point out, desire comes from the word de, or from, and sire, or father, or God. So your desires of your heart are from God, not the desires of your ego, which are from your ego, but from God. And as we learn to pay attention to the desires of our hearts and feel guided in a particular direction, we use this power of zeal to urge us forward, to move us forward. And as long as we interpret these desires rightly, in other words, to experience more of God, and under the direction of, remember, wisdom and love, we'll be making the right use of zeal. And this leads us to step 3, dedication. At this point, our awakening desires become so important to us that we're willing to dedicate ourselves to helping them be fulfilled. This is what Charles and Myrtle did. They devoted their whole life to unity and seeing it make a difference in the world. But we must make the decision to leave our outer zealot life of trying to force results and devote ourselves to begin to allow that spiritual zeal to awaken in us. A sort of a warm, glowing feeling. We kind of feel it whenever we think about our objective, whatever we're zealous about. I am very zealous about unity too. You can probably tell. Any of those of you that spend any time with me or know me. Because it begins to generate the energy that we need to accomplish things that we need to do. Like Charles Fillmore said it still at age 94. Boy, he's my hero. I want to be just like Charles when I grow up. But as we awaken our dedication more and more, It just makes us be step 4, which is energized. And at this point, we're wide awake, we're vitalized, we're renewed, we're on fire with spiritual purpose and determination. We can work hard without making it hard work. And we not only energize our own life, but we also radiate it to others, inspiring them to spiritual activity and growth. Our energy sustains us as we work tirelessly. We don't really care what others think about our purpose or how they might react to our ideas of truth. We're not trying to impress anyone, but who we're being attracts others with our inner light. We shine our light, as Anthony's saying, and we shine, and we shine, and we shine so bright. That's our zeal and enthusiasm. We act from our inner spirituality and enthusiasm and passion. As Linda Martell Whitsett, director of Silent Unity, puts it, to eagerly awaken each day, to enthusiastically anticipate our activities, to forge ahead with gusto, to wholeheartedly attend to all that matters to us. These are common signs of our innate faculty of zeal at work.